Thanks for listening to the Rapport Advantage podcast. Before we dive into today's show, make sure you've listened to episodes 2 through 6. Those shows provide a deep dive into personality styles and the origins of the DISC model of human behavior. You'll need those when we start discussing high Ds or inspiring styles, the supportive types, or those cautious styles. Now, on with the show!
Welcome to the Rapport Advantage podcast, transforming the way leaders communicate. Here's your host, human behavior expert and professional speaker, Alex Swire-Clark.
Welcome to the show, everybody, live from Podcast Movement 2018, Philadelphia, PA. Hear those rumblings in the background? That's kind of cool. Over 2,000 people here for Podcast Movement. It is a conference for podcasters of any and all sizes, all shapes, lengths of time they've been on. Just a wonderful place to meet, greet, and challenge yourself to get better at your craft, which is what we're trying to do here on the Rapport Advantage podcast. And we're excited to have you with us today. If you haven't listened to our podcast before, we are here to help you break down the walls of miscommunication, increase your emotional intelligence, and build better relationships in the workplace and beyond. I am Alex Swire-Clark, CEO, speaker, and emotional intelligence expert. This show is all about you. If you've got questions about emotional intelligence in the workplace, personally, anywhere else, we'd love to get those from you. You can follow us on Facebook at The Rapport Advantage, on Twitter at Rapport Podcast, or visit the website at rapportadvantage.com. Our main show topic for today is DISs and Cs and how to get the most out of a trade show. So when you're attending a trade show, what are the things that, as each style, you need to be mindful of so that you're maximizing your time here, like I am here at Podcast Movement 2018. For our Ds, our thought is don't push business cards out. Focus on the relationship. When we're at a high D and we're thinking about doing things and getting things done, we're about power networking. How many people can I meet? How many hands can I shake? How many business cards can I send out there? How many people can I leverage into my network? Well, let's back up the truck a little bit. And don't worry about trying to get to every session and do power networking and go to all the socials at night and. Try to make the most of the time with those relationships from a little bit slower and steadier standpoint. So, for example, today I went to eat lunch with about 8 other folks. We spent about 2 hours together. So that was seriously quality time to really get to know folks, as opposed to going out, saying hey to somebody in Starbucks when I'm picking up a bagel and a cup of coffee. I might have a small connection, but it's not that deep, meaningful connection that builds those lasting relationships. So Ds, be aware of that. Don't push those business cards out. Focus on developing relationships on a slower and steadier standpoint, maybe some repeat contacts versus just trying to stick business cards in everyone's hands and really power through that. For your eyes need to tell people what you do and then stop talking and then ask questions. When you stop talking and ask questions, you're going to find those meaningful connections, because as high Is, I am a high I, we like to talk about ourselves 24/7. But when you're in these particular environments, it's not about you. It's about the connections you can make with others. So focus on the fact that you're here to give more than you are necessarily to get at that particular point in time. But yeah, let your personality shine through. Make people laugh. Be a responsive humorist, if you will. Ask people about what they do, where they come from, what their podcasts are all about. For other trade shows, it might be where'd you go to school, where are you working now, where have you worked before, what's your best thing about the job, and really get them talking about themselves, and that will give them a positive image of who you are as a person so that you can develop those relationships even more quickly. For our S's, set a hello goal and step out of your comfort zone. As S's, we know you guys are reserved. You're people-oriented, so you like being around other people, but not necessarily making that first move. You're not the person that's going to make that introduction. But, again, my challenge to you is try to set a goal for the number of hellos or the number of introductions you're going to do in a day. Let's say it's your first trade show. Maybe you're scared out of your mind. Well, let's start with 2 people. One before lunch, one after lunch, where you're just sitting down beside someone in a session, or you're meeting someone at a booth. Hello, introduce yourself, ask a few questions like we talked about before. How long you've been doing this? Where you located? Try to find some mutual connections like that. Again, we've talked about this on other podcasts. Find sports teams you might be able to figure out where there might be some connections, either as shared enemies or as shared favorites. So, for example, if you're in Philly, I can talk about Eagles all day long, and probably I'm going to have someone, because the Philadelphia Eagles is a National Football League team, I'll probably find some people who are going to have some common interest there. Go Eagles, woo, that kind of thing. So you don't have to be the rah-rah system by as a high S, but try to get out of your comfort zone a little bit and look for those meaningful connections in other ways other than just trying to get yourself in front of people and shake hands and run, because that's not going to get you anything from that. Again, when you get to these conferences and you've come for the first year, second year, by the time you're in the third year, you're about the relationships and the networking side of that, and leveraging those for a mutually beneficial result, as opposed to, oh, man, I got a great nugget out of that session. Those are great, but again, we're here for those relationships. And finally, for you high Cs, the power is in the people. The power is in the people. So again, when you're coming to these shows, I know that you guys want to maximize your time in the sessions. You want to make sure you're talking to the speaker afterwards. Hey, can I get a copy of the slide deck? Because you want to review that slide deck up and down and, backwards and everywhere else to try and make sure you're squeezing as much blood out of that turnip as you possibly can to get the most impact you can out of each session, because obviously your time is valuable. But what we want to focus on is that the power here is in the people, the networking. And so that usually goes against what you normally are, because you're about the process instead of the people. But you're going to get plenty of process in the sessions and the breakouts. That's going to happen when you go see the keynotes. You're going to see and hear about the things that you need to see and hear about from those sessions. But it's what goes on in the hallways. It's what goes on in those after parties, those networking connections. That's where you're going to be focusing on building those relationships. So go to those socials. I know that you're probably going to be tired, but go to those socials, go to those meetups, go to those parties, and again, introduce yourself to one or two people. Try to make some meaningful relationships that way. And not only will you have the tech that you came for or the nuggets of information that you want, but you'll have nuggets of relationships that you'll be able to foster, have some meaningful friendships, and then possibly, have some situations where you can collaborate, or situations where you'll be having some mutually beneficial ways that you two can help each other out as time goes on. So the connections that you find are priceless. And that's going to do it for this short abbreviated show here at Podcast Movement 2018. To get in touch with me, visit me at therapportadvantage.com. Again, on Twitter at Rapport Podcast. Again, I'm always here to help you in any questions that you have on emotional intelligence. We are a business podcast, but a lot of you have been emailing and putting things from the website in terms of, hey, Alex, I took an assessment. This has been great. Can I get my husband to take one? Well, sure. Absolutely. And so, we have interaction reports that we use to show you how well the two different styles work together based on your specific assessment results. So if you say that you're a C, but you've never taken one of our assessments, take our assessment. It will give you that specific style blend that you are, 0 to 100 in all 4 dimensions. Have a spouse or significant other take that, and then we can base your interaction report in terms of how well you complement each other, where some potential blind spots are going to be, as potential parents or when you're in your relationship, and you can go through those and really, really change the dynamics of your relationship. Maybe it's a little rocky right now, and you can't understand why she can't go to the grocery store and get all 10 items on the list, and you have 8. When you come home and you're like, what the heck happened? Or, someone's less spontaneous than others. Somebody's a planner. Someone's really, really focused and always being what you think is hypercritical of every comment or when you come home or a project or the food that you make. And that's not that they're being critical. They're just trying to improve processes. So if you take those assessments and you get that interaction dynamic report, it really, really is enlightening in terms of where you are and how that relationship can be turned for a positive direction there. So again, this has been Alex Swire-Clark. You've been listening to the Rapport Advantage podcast, and we will see you on our next episode. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Rapport Advantage podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Join the conversation on Facebook at the Rapport Advantage and follow us on Twitter at Rapport Podcast.